Picture this. You walk out into your yard at dawn, coffee in hand, excited to check on your plants, only to find your prized seedlings have been absolutely decimated overnight. If you're a gardener, you know that profound heartbreak all too well. It's a frustrating, silent battle. But today, we're going to completely shift our mindset. We are going to treat your garden like a fortress that needs active defending from an incredibly persistent, invasive threat, the garden slug. In this explainer, I'm going to walk you through a complete masterclass on how to reclaim your territory using proven, science-backed strategies.
Now you might be wondering how this problem gets out of hand so incredibly fast. Well, get this, 100. A single slug can lay up to 100 eggs in just one season. And because slugs are hermaphrodites, nearly every single slug you spot in your garden has the biological capability to lay those eggs. They don't have to wait around to build a population, they just multiply exponentially. If left unchecked, your garden can go from a minor annoyance to a massive, full-blown infestation in a matter of weeks.
So here is our game plan for today's explainer. First, we'll meet the garden slugs, then spotting the slimy damage, smart prevention strategies, effective control methods, long-term garden management, and finally, common mistakes to avoid.
All right, phase 1. Meet the garden slugs, the reconnaissance phase.
The most notorious villain in many parts of Europe and beyond is the invasive Spanish slug. These nocturnal mollusks absolutely thrive in damp, dark, and cool environments. They need constant moisture to survive, which perfectly explains why they love hiding under old boards or thick mulch during the day. But to really understand the damage they cause, you have to look at how they eat. Slugs don't just take neat little bites out of your plants, they have this anatomical feature called a radula. It's literally a tongue-like organ covered in thousands of microscopic teeth. They use it to scrape, shred, and just aggressively consume plant tissue. It is a brutal process. Once you know how that radula works, the bizarre patterns of destruction they leave behind start to make perfect sense.
Moving right along to phase 2. Spotting the slimy damage. Know the signs.
You obviously can't fight an enemy if you don't realize they're the ones attacking, right? A lot of novice gardeners will see holes in their leaves and immediately blame caterpillars or beetles. But slug damage has a very specific, undeniable signature. Because of that radula we just talked about, they don't leave neat, circular holes. Instead, you're going to see jagged, uneven holes, often right in the middle of a leaf because they avoid the thicker veins. The absolute undeniable proof, though, is that silver, shiny slime trail they leave behind on your soil, pots, and foliage. If your tender young seedlings just vanish overnight, or if you're seeing severe damage isolated right down near the damp soil level, you've definitely got a slug problem.
Which brings us to phase 3, smart prevention strategies, fortifying the perimeter.
So how do we stop them before they even start? It is all about cultural practices. You have to make your garden a place where slugs simply do not want to hang out. Your absolute best first line of defense is habitat denial. Think about a slug's paradise. Constantly wet topsoil, scattered boards or old pots acting as perfect daytime bunkers, and really dense, overcrowded planting that traps humidity. We need to flip that into a fortified fortress. We want dry topsoil, completely cleared of unnecessary debris, with optimal plant spacing of about 50 by 50 centimeters. That spacing provides excellent airflow, which allows the soil to dry out. Slugs despise crossing dry, exposed terrain. By just cleaning up your garden, you're eliminating their safe zones.
Okay, phase 4. Effective control methods, the arsenal.
But what if they're already entrenched in your yard? Now we have to deploy active countermeasures following a timeline of escalation. In integrated pest management, or IPM, we always start with the least invasive tactics first. Phase 1 relies on physical barriers, things like copper tape or crushed eggshells, just to block them out. Phase 2 moves up to active trapping, using beer or cardboard to manually knock down the population. If the invasion is heavy, we escalate to Phase 3, biological controls, like introducing microscopic nematodes into the soil. And finally, Phase 4 represents chemical interventions like metalli-hide baits. Those are your heavy artillery, strictly reserved for severe cases.
Let's quickly break down the specific safety profiles of these tools. Physical barriers like copper tape are actually really fascinating. The copper reacts with the slug's slime and generates a tiny electric shock that turns them right around. It's brilliant and 100% safe for the environment. You can also use organic, rain-resistant gels like Bioplantella to create a physical blockade. Then you have biological controls like Nemaslug 2.0. This introduces microscopic worms into the soil that are entirely eco-friendly but absolutely fatal to the slugs hiding down there. Now, if you decide to use chemical baits like metaldehyde or iron sulfate, you must be incredibly careful. Our sources heavily emphasize that these are highly toxic and pose serious risks to pets, children, and beneficial wildlife.
Now here's a highly effective, somewhat lesser-known tactic, 1 to 2%. Research actually shows that a simple 1 to 2% caffeine solution acts as a lethal spray for slugs. And hey, if you don't want to bother making a spray, just take your leftover coffee grounds and sprinkle them in a ring around your most vulnerable plants. It acts as an incredible natural repellent barrier. Slugs absolutely despise crawling over it.
If you want to aggressively reduce their numbers without spending a single dime, you've got to try this incredibly simple trap. Step 1. Just dampen a piece of cardboard, an old wooden board, or a piece of linoleum. Step 2. Lay it flat on the bare soil near your most heavily attacked plants right before sunset. Step 3. Because slugs are always looking for dark, damp places to hide when the sun comes up, they'll flock to it. You just lift the trap in the morning, collect the massive gathering of slugs underneath, and manually dispose of them. It is stunningly effective.
Phase 5. Long-term garden management, the peace treaty.
Getting rid of a current infestation is great, but we want to win the war permanently, right? To achieve a lasting peace treaty, you need to establish an ecological balance by drafting an army of natural predators. When your garden ecosystem is balanced, it actually defends itself naturally without you having to lift a finger. Make your garden hospitable to hedgehogs, frogs, and toads, and they'll happily feast on slugs all night long. Ground beetles are fantastic allies too. And if you have the space for it, keeping chickens or specific breeds of ducks like Indian runners is an absolute game changer. They'll patrol your garden at dawn and just vacuum up every slug in sight. Just make sure to protect your really delicate plants from the birds first.
Another brilliant long-term strategy is repellent companion planting. You see, slugs rely heavily on their sense of smell to find food. By intentionally surrounding your highly vulnerable crops, like lettuce or cabbage, with strongly scented herbs, you essentially throw up a sensory smokescreen. Planting things like wormwood, rosemary, lavender, sage, and mint creates a natural, pleasant-smelling perimeter that completely overwhelms and deters them.
And finally, Phase 6. Common mistakes to avoid, breaking the cycle.
Even with all these great tactics, gardeners so often unknowingly shoot themselves in the foot. One of the absolute most common yet easily fixable mistakes involves your watering schedule. When you water your garden in the evening, you are leaving the soil surface and plant leaves wet all night long. You are literally ringing the dinner bell and rolling out a wet, slippery red carpet for nocturnal slugs. But if you just switch to watering in the morning, the deep roots get the moisture they need and the topsoil dries out by sunset. This completely closes the feeding window for slugs by creating a dry, impassable surface right when they're waking up to eat. Change your watering schedule and I promise you will see immediate results.
And here is the ultimate mistake: relying entirely on toxic chemical baits without actually fixing your garden hygiene. Chemicals are just a temporary band-aid. If you leave damp debris, overgrown weeds, and wet hiding spots scattered all over your yard, the slugs are simply going to breed faster than you can bait them. True, lasting success comes from the integrated pest management approach we've outlined today. It's a combination of hygiene, natural barriers, and biological balance.
Before we wrap up, it's my absolute duty to share this vital disclaimer from our sources. Always check local agricultural regulations and consult with gardening experts before applying any chemical controls. Products containing metaldehyde are effective, yes, but they can be highly toxic to your pets, to children, and to the very wildlife we are trying to attract to eat the slugs in the first place. Please practice safe, responsible, and informed gardening. So, I leave you with this final thought. What's it going to be? Will your garden remain a free, all-you-can-eat midnight buffet for these slimy invaders? Or will you take action tomorrow morning, clear the debris, change your watering schedule, and use these proven tactics to build a beautiful, balanced, slug-resistant ecosystem? The tools are now in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I wish you the absolute best of luck in defending your garden fortress.